It was barely 6:15 a.m. when the world outside was still stretching its limbs under the blush of dawn. Birds chirped lazily in the branches above, and the dewy air of suburban Seattle carried a kind of quiet promise, like something good was about to happen. Daniel Harris, 34, tightened the straps on his daughter's tiny pink backpack as he crouched in front of her. Emma, just 6, was munching on a banana and trying not to wrinkle the dress she picked out herself for her first day at a new school. "You nervous?" he asked softly. She shrugged, but her eyes betrayed her. "A little. Will you pick me up early?" He smiled, brushing a strand of chestnut hair from her cheek. "I'll be right there when the bell rings." Daniel was a full-time single dad, part-time mechanic, and overtime dreamer. Life hadn't been gentle with him since his wife, Rachel, passed away 3 years ago. Cancer stole her away slowly, cruelly. Since then, he'd done his best to hold things together, raising Emma with love, holding a job at Frank's auto shop, and keeping his late wife's favorite wildflowers alive on the kitchen windowsill. Some days were harder than others. But that morning, after dropping Emma off, he decided to go for a rare jog, an old habit from college days that he'd nearly forgotten. He tied his sneakers tightly and ran through the winding trails of Jefferson Park, letting the rhythm of his footsteps and the cool morning breeze silence the clutter in his mind. Half a mile in, just past the trail's bend, he noticed a figure ahead, a woman running with intent. Tall, athletic, in a black windbreaker and neon shoes. She looked focused, determined. Seconds later, she collapsed like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Daniel didn't think. He sprinted to her side, heart hammering. "Miss?" he shouted, dropping to his knees. "Hey, can you hear me?" No response. He checked for a pulse. Nothing. She wasn't breathing. He fumbled for his phone, hands trembling, and called 911. Then he positioned her flat, tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and began CPR. 1, 2, 3 compressions. Breathe. He hadn't done this since high school training, but muscle memory kicked in. He counted aloud, sweat beading on his forehead. Every second felt like an eternity. The dispatcher's voice guided him, but his focus was the woman's pale face. And then, after almost 2 agonizing minutes, a gasp. She sucked in air like it was her first breath. Her eyelids fluttered. Her fingers twitched. Daniel blinked, relief flooding him. "Hey," he said, gently holding her shoulder. "You're okay. Help's on the way." She looked at him, dazed, confused, and still catching her breath. Her lips parted slightly. "I'm your new boss," she whispered. Daniel stared. The ambulance arrived minutes later. Paramedics took over as Daniel stepped back, adrenaline draining from him all at once. He sat on a bench nearby, catching his breath, replaying her words in his mind. That couldn't be right, could it? The next morning, Daniel arrived at work, his hands still smelling faintly of engine oil. He'd told Frank, the shop's owner, about what happened, but he hadn't told anyone about her words. It felt too strange, too surreal. Frank was waiting near the office. "We've got someone coming in today. Corporate sent a new regional manager to evaluate and help update the shop. Some big shakeups coming." Daniel nodded. "All right." Around 9:30, the glass door opened, and there she was. In a crisp gray suit, hair tied back, and walking with just a hint of hesitation from the previous day's trauma. Her eyes met Daniel's, and for a second, both froze. I remember you," she said. "Likewise," Daniel replied awkwardly. Frank looked between them. "Daniel, meet Ms. Natalie Blake. She's the new Regional Operations Director for all branches in Washington. Your new boss." Natalie extended her hand, her expression unreadable. Daniel shook it, feeling like the earth had shifted under his feet. The day unfolded strangely. Natalie kept her distance, but observed everything. She asked questions, took notes, and barely glanced at Daniel except for brief, polite acknowledgments. At noon, he stepped out for a coffee break. Natalie followed moments later. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. He nodded, leading her toward a bench under a shade tree. "I didn't imagine it," she began. "You really did CPR on me. You collapsed. I couldn't just leave you there," he said simply. "You saved my life," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And then today, I walk in and find out you work here. What are the odds? I don't know, but I'm glad you're okay." She looked at him closely, as if trying to piece together the man who'd kneeled on wet earth to bring her back to life. "I want to do something," she said. "To thank you." "You don't have to." No, she insisted. You don't understand. I've spent my whole life climbing ladders, building things. But no one has ever just saved me. Not like that. They sat quietly. Wind rustled the leaves above. Natalie eventually broke the silence. I also want to ask something. Hypothetically, if you were offered a better position, would you take it? Something with better pay. More time with your daughter. Daniel raised a brow. What are you getting at? Natalie smiled faintly. Let's just say I have the power to make certain decisions. What followed over the next few weeks changed both their lives. Natalie, in her new role, found subtle ways to reward Daniel. First, with a promotion to lead technician. Then, a flexible schedule that allowed him to drop off and pick up Emma. She even organized childcare options for employees. When Daniel tried to protest, she'd simply smile and say, "Good work deserves good support." Their paths crossed more often, sometimes over work, sometimes over coffee. Slowly, carefully, they began to talk, really talk. About Rachel. About the loneliness of being a single dad. About Natalie's past. A childhood in foster care. The career she buried herself in to avoid her own pain. One night, after a community fundraiser at the shop, Daniel found Natalie in the break room alone, holding a toy Emma had left behind. "You're amazing with her," he said. "She's easy to love," Natalie replied, looking up at him. There was a pause. A long, quiet pause filled with something unspoken. "She asked if you were my girlfriend," he chuckled. "What did you say?" "I said not yet." Natalie's eyes welled, and she laughed through her tears. From a chance meeting on a jogging trail to something neither had expected, their story unfolded with the fragile beauty of fate. They weren't just boss and employee anymore. They were two people with broken pieces that fit together in all the right places. And it all started with one breath.